Hey folks, Force Captain Meph here, coming to you from the Kingdom of Snows on a much-needed vacation. So we were so excited to talk to you about all of the big feels of Failsafe that we kinda, maybe, sorta recorded 4 hours of material. So instead of getting one episode, you're getting two. And you can expect the second episode once I return to Bright Moon. For all those of you who want the full force of the Failsafe, we'll be offering the uncut version for our Patreon members. You can find the link to our Patreon and all of our internet everythings at heyadora.gay. Hey folks, and welcome back to Hey Adora, your queer sheer podcast. I'm Force Captain Meph, they, them.
And I'm Princess Jenny, she, her.
And today is a day about feelings.
Woo! It sure is. We are into our final three. Oh my freaking God.
We are into our final three. We are having feelings of the heart. This week's episode is Failsafe. Failsafe was written by Catherine Nolfi. It was storyboards by Charlemagne Coe, Sasha Much, Belinda Smith, and the regent of Catra Adora herself, Mickey Quinn. It is directed by Mandy Clotworthy. And we're going to have a ton of feelings today, people.
Amazing.
Jenny.
Yes, Meph.
So many feelings.
So many feelings. This episode is so gutting.
It's gutting. This is the beginning of what we like to call the three-part ending movie. Because as we have talked about before, very long ago, back in the before times.
The first three episodes we think of as the three-part beginning.
Yep.
And then in the middle, there's three episodes that are like the transition from the first half to the second half. There's three episodes that are like a three-part movie. Mm-hmm. And then the last three episodes are like a three-part movie.
Yep.
And we have talked about that quite a bit.
We have talked about that quite a bit, both among ourselves and with our special guests.
Yes. And speaking of our special guests, when we had Sar on for Corridors, our friend of the pod, Sar from 5x5 Takes, Sar pointed out this episode written by Catherine Nolfi as lead writer. Catherine Nolfi has written some bangers, including Corridors.
Yes.
And so when I was thinking about that with this episode, I was like, oh, okay, so what other episodes has Catherine Nolfi written? And I realized that this episode and the next episode, Heart Part 1, were both written by the same group of three. Just this one was Catherine Nolfi as lead writer, and Heart Part 1 was Josie Campbell as head writer, but it's the same group of three. Catherine Nolfi, Laura Sreebney, and Josie Campbell.
Yeah.
For both this and the next episode.
Yeah, that's true.
So Catherine Nolfi wrote a bunch of episodes, but some of the big ones are Protocol, Fractures, Destiny Part 1 and 2, Corridors, Shot in the Dark, Failsafe, and Moment of Truth.
Catherine Nolfi does a lot of emotional, hard-hitting episodes.
Yeah. And Josie Campbell, who is the official head writer of the whole show, actually didn't write that many episodes as the lead writer. I think maybe she had her eye on the big picture more in terms of guiding other people. I don't know how it works if you're officially designated as the lead writer of a show.
Yeah, I don't know how the head writer works in this particular writer's room versus other writers' room.
Yes, but she only wrote a few episodes that she's officially designated as lead writer. She wrote Flowers for Shira, Princess Prom, Light Hope, Roll With It, Reunion, Once Upon a Time in the Waste, The Portal, and Heart Part 1.
All bangers.
Yeah.
All thrills. No fills.
Yeah, so there's some really fun ones in there. So I think like those are two very different lists of episodes. So I think that those two people probably help balance each other out really well.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. All guided by the gentle hand of Nate.
Indeed.
All right, so we're going to get into it.
So big thoughts on this episode. As we have discussed off mic, we are both really in deep on this one because I super identify with Adora in this ep. And you super identify with Catra in this ep. So we're both super deep in it.
I do. You know, we're queer people, and so we talk about our trauma. And this episode is queer people and their trauma. And Jenny and I have a lot of feelings about this episode, and we really need your hugs.
Yes. And hug each other also.
And hug each other and take care of yourself. And let's get into it. Are you ready?
Yes. Let's go to the Vagina Cave hideout.
Let's go to the vagina cave. So we're picking up exactly where we left off in the vagina cave, and we're getting some exposition here.
Yeah, they hit the ground running with the exposition. It's not even like it's almost like we're in the middle of a scene. It's super in medias res.
It's super in medias res.
Like Shadow Weaver and Auntie Casta have just strolled in, and we didn't even see them come in. And Bo was already being like, wait, where have you guys been all this time? It's like they're strolling in, making a fashionably late entrance for drag brunch.
They have that vibe. Or like, also they have that like, have you ever seen the movie Practical Magic?
Are you really asking me that? Of course I have.
Of course you have. They remind me of
the aunties.
The aunties. One of them's kind of like the grouchy witch, and one of them's kind of like the happier witch, the bubblier witch.
Yes, that's a wonderful comparison, of course.
Folks, if you haven't seen Practical Magic, it is a 90s movie about a family of witches, and there's fantastic murder, and Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock are in it, as well as Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest.
Yeah, it's like feminist revenge murder of the patriarchy. It's not just general murder and magic.
Jenny, don't you mean magic?
I do. We haven't had a magic in so long, and I've been thinking about it the last bunch of eps, wondering if we'd ever have enough levity to have a magic.
Well, we're starting our levity right now. So anyway, everybody should see Practical Magic. It's a fantastic film.
So what have Auntie Casta and Shadow Weaver been doing all this time while everybody else was super busy?
What, you mean super busy traipsing around in space, not even on Etheria?
Yeah, traipsing around in space on their fun space vacation.
Thanks, Shadow Weaver. Well, in fact, they were looking for a way to stop the heart of Etheria, and they found a way to do it. A failsafe.
Well, that sounds helpful.
It sure does. In fact, they discovered that there was a failsafe that could break the restraints the first ones built and set the magic free. What?
Which is also what our buddies found. Everyone has come to the same conclusion.
But Glimmer maybe is a little like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, Glimmer is super not into this.
Yeah, but Casta, patiently explains, as the wonderful auntie that she is, that they're actually trying to free the magic for all of Etheria so everyone can be a slayer.
Yes. Good comparison.
Yeah, so they're trying to make sure that everyone can be a slayer. And Casta points out that Shadow Weaver is the lesser of two evils.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to do the best you can with what you have.
But Catra sharply points out, and remember, people, this is the first time that Catra has seen Shadow Weaver since Shadow Weaver escaped, and Catra thought that she was, like, really there for her, really making a connection, really understanding, and Shadow Weaver just bounced on her.
Yeah, since Catra decided to have a tiny bit of trust and was super stabbed in the back.
Yep.
And it's been quite a while.
It's been quite a while. And Catra, says, well, at least you admit she's evil. And she's got this this look where her ears are down, and she's got this look of like sadness and anger, and Milog is there, and Milog is growling, and it's like, yeah, she's mean.
Yeah, Milog is reflecting.
And the two of them just immediately get into it.
Yeah, and Shadow Weaver, of course, being the adult that she is, basically does the I know you are, but what am I?
Right.
Because she's so grown up and classy.
Right. And she's like, oh, good, Catra's here. I can make someone miserable. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Adora responds to this by just putting her hand on Catra's shoulder in this move that's sort of like, I'm on your side, but let's not make a thing of this right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like how she is through the whole episode in a way it's like you want to see more from her, but it's like, okay, you understand. Adora's caught up in this too. And she's also a victim and she has her own responses, but it's also frustrating.
Right. And this is the first time, like you said in this, where, they do have this dynamic, and Catra takes it kind of in stride this time.
Yeah, she does.
But Milog, I love that Milog puffs up and then hides behind Adora after just being like, fine, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, they very much established that, Milog is loyal to Adora and Catra and no one else.
So yeah, Catra and Milog having a lot of feelings, and Adora's like, we just need to get through this, and demands to know, what do you know about the failsafe? What makes you think it's there?
Yes, and Shadow Weaver starts to explain that as all good sorcerers know, Mysticor was built on the ruins of an ancient First One citadel.
Huh.
And now, Meph, I am assuming that you, as a big Professor Smartbrain, you probably already know what a citadel is, but I did not.
Jenny, I don't know what the difference between a citadel and other fortified structures are. So I am really interested in learning about that.
So I decided that since this was something I had to look up, and since it was probably some sort of military term, that it qualified as a fun recurrence of a segment that we have not had for quite a while. I'm going to count this, since it's military architecture, as a weapons corner.
So it's a Jenny's weapons corner.
It sure is. So in the past, we have occasionally done a weapons corner for military architecture. Like back in Roll With It, there was parapets that we did weapons corner on. Because I had a vague notion that this was some sort of military architecture thing, but I didn't really know. So I had to look it up. So for those folks like me who had a vague notion but didn't really know, here's a general explanation for what is a citadel. A citadel is the most fortified area of a town or city. It may be a castle, fortress, or a fortified center. The term citadel is the diminutive form of the word city, meaning little city, because it is a smaller part of the city of which it is the defensive core.
Huh.
So here's a fun fact. The world's oldest citadel, which I checked with several independent sources, because I was like, okay, we're not just going to trust Wikipedia, right? So this is according to Wikipedia, the World Monuments Fund, UNESCO World Heritage Center, NASA Earth Observatory, and the Middle East Institute all separately said this. The oldest citadel in the world is the Citadel of Erbil, or Erbil, which is also thought to be the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. It's yes.
Is that near the place that invented writing?
I don't know.
It's in Iraq, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's at least 6,000 years old, and some sources suggest it might be up to 8,000 years old in terms of how long it's been continuously inhabited. And I'm going to drop a link into the show notes that has a really cool overhead photo from NASA Earth Observatory where you can see the citadel in the center of the city.
Oh, cool.
The city of Erbil itself is the capital and most populated city in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. And it is described as the region's cultural, economic, industrial, educational, and medical hub. So it could very well be the place where writing was invented. I don't know that. But people can look it up if they want to. Citadels have also been used by basically every major civilization around the world, including the Indus Valley Civilization, which was a Bronze Age civilization in the northwestern regions of South Asia from 3300 to 1300 BCE. And just as a reminder, BCE and CE is what some non-Christian folks say instead of BC and AD, just to decenter Christ. And there is some debate over whether these citadels in the Indus Valley Civilization were used for military purposes or to divert floodwaters, or possibly both. And then from 800 BCE to 400 CE, the ancient Greeks, they were wild about the Acropolis, which literally means a high city. But this also often served a dual purpose as a citadel, serving as lookout, refuge, and stronghold in times of peril, plus containing military and food supplies, as well as other non-military or strategy things like shrines, temples, and royal palaces. Also, during the same time period, there were many citadels that have been discovered in Portugal, Spain, and extending all the way through France, Ireland, and Britain. And this whole region and time period has loosely been termed the Atlantic Bronze Age, referring to the countries on the Atlantic coast of Europe. Though apparently, and you might know more about this, it's never been formally defined, the Atlantic Bronze Age, so it's sort of loosey-goosey. And they did describe the development of citadels around the ancient world as autochthonous, which is a term we learned when we were talking about the collective unconscious.
Oh.
And it refers to basically this idea that, like, okay, all these citadels were being thought up and built and put into practice by all these different ancient civilizations all around the world at roughly the same time. It seems like they must have been in communication with each other to have the same idea at the same time, but they weren't. They all thought of it independently. So I'm certainly not going to go there are so many more examples throughout every time period in history, and I'm not going to go through them all. But one final little fun fact, jumping way, way forward in time to modern usage, the Citadel of Quebec, which the construction was started in 1673 and completed in 1820, still survives as the largest citadel still in official military operation in North America.
That's wild. I had no idea.
Yes, I'm sure Trump would hate that, to know that, Canada is outstripping us in any military sense.
I know.
It is home to the Royal 22nd Regiment of the Canadian Army and forms part of the ramparts of Quebec City dating back to 1620.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
So in summation, citadels are a great part of military strategy. At various periods, and particularly during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the citadel, having its own fortifications totally independent of city walls, was the last defense of a besieged army and often held out long after the town or city had been conquered. Yeah.
I guess that makes sense that Mystacor is on the ruins of one.
Yes, for example, the 1543 siege of Nice, the Ottoman forces led by Barbarossa conquered and pillaged the town and took many captives, but the citadel survived. So there you go. So it does make total sense that this first one Citadel was a thing and that Mystacor was built on top of it, and we consider Mystacor the safest place in all of Etheria.
Yes, I love that. Also, Jenny, thank you for bringing up the Bronze Age, which is one of my favorite things ever to talk about.
No problem.
I was like, we're learning about the Bronze Age today? I listen to podcasts about that every night.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jenny. That was awesome. I had no idea that that's like how old citadels were, and also like how specific that was. Because I always just thought it was a castle, but it's not.
Well, it can be.
It can be, but it's not the only thing it can be.
Right. Yeah. It's multifunctional and a flexible construct that, people around the world and all through history have used to help their civilizations survive in shitty times.
That's so fucking cool. Like Mystacor.
Yes.
Awesome.
And so now we know what it is that we are talking about.
Yes. Now this makes so much more sense.
Yeah, to me too, because I really didn't know what it was.
Yeah. One thing I was going to mention is that, just to kind of roll back on Meph's special interest of ancient history, I found it fascinating that Mystacor is built on the ruins of an ancient First One citadel. If you go through many, many, many places in, I'm going to specifically say Northern Europe, though it's everywhere in Europe, really, many churches were built on sites that were considered sacred by the people that were there before them. This is kind of a really cool idea of like Mystacor was building something sacred on the ruins of a site that was important before them as well. So.
Yeah, they kind of just repurposed it.
Awesome.
So if we jump back into the scene.
Let's jump back into this scene.
Shadow Weaver is just saying, ruins of the First One citadel, and beneath Mystacor.
And Cast is like, oh, I want to tell this part. And I'm just completely delighted by this. Absolutely delighted.
Of course. Because she's super into the vibe.
Because she's super into this vibe. She's like, because we know, like, throughout the series, we've seen Casta wanted to tell the big epic stories. And she really, she elevates her voice, and she loves to be, like, she's a queen, right?
Yes.
Like, she loves to be extra. And this is such a fantastic place to be extra. Beneath Mystacor, there are many secret tunnels and rooms forgotten and sealed off. No one has been able to access them in centuries, but there are whispers of what they contain.
Yeah, she's really crafting the mood and setting the stage. She's telling a story here.
She's telling a story here. And so, of course, Shadow Weaver shuts it down because she sucks ass. And it's like, an artifact known as the Crystal of Arxia, hidden there by a group of traders, First Ones. And it's like, dude, don't tell the punchline. Come on.
Because her favorite thing to do is to, like, suck all the joy out of the room.
Right. Ruin other people's joy.
Yes.
Like that is her joy. Her joy is to ruin other people's joy.
Yes, that is exactly right.
And be completely in control of every situation. But that being said, I do enjoy the entertainment aspect of their dynamic.
Yes. Yes, of course. It is very entertaining. Yeah. And my note for that is that Shadow Weaver is salty that Casta was taking too long being a drama queen because nobody else is allowed to do that.
Only Shadow Weaver can be a drama queen.
Yes. But this is a very exciting revelation for the whole group, though.
It's incredibly exciting for them. It's exciting for us. It's exciting for everybody here. And Bo makes some connections here because he was just hanging out with his dads who told him about Arxia and about the rebels that were there and how the Failsafe may be under Mysticor. Which, okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Shadow Weaver is very excited about how important she is now.
Yes.
She says they're definitely going to need her for this because she's the only one who knows all the super secret cheat codes for sneaking around Mysticor.
Yep. And Adora's like, okay, so then why do you need us?
Right. If you know all this stuff, you could just go and do it yourself.
And Shadow Weaver's like, such an asshole.
Yeah.
We learn here that Mysticor is controlled by Micah, who, as you may recall, is controlled by Horde Prime. And so, Shadow Weaver is basically saying we all need to be there because there's going to be some fucking whiz-biz there.
And she gets right up in Adora's face. And she's so handsy with Adora throughout this entire episode.
This entire episode, she goes right back into the patterns that she has of like being physically intimate in a manipulative way. And she does this with both of them. And it's like she doesn't know how to not have this dynamic.
Yeah, like she's always going to do that as long as people will let her get away with it.
Right. She's always going to do it to Adora. She's always going to do it to Catra.
But Catra, has a strong response to it and be like, fucking no.
Right. Yeah.
And Adora does not until the very, very end of the episode.
We're going to get there and then we're going to cry a bunch. But for now,
yeah,
we have Shadow Weaver pretty much saying, well, I need you to get me there. Of course, has to be an asshole about it too. And was like, well, you have allowed Prime to take too much ground. There's no more time for half measures. Adora, you must act now.
Yeah. And as she's saying this, again, like she's just reinserting herself as Adora's chief advisor. She's trying to make herself important, indispensable, more powerful by being, the one who whispers in the general's ear.
Right. And just being a general narcissist. Like,
yeah, exactly.
We've talked a lot in the earlier episodes when we've had more of a, talked about more of the dynamic between Shadow Weaver and Adora and Catra. And we've talked about how she, neither one of us is a medical professional or a mental health professional. We have had conversations about how Shadow Weaver does fit many of the character kind of descriptions of somebody that is a narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we are not professionals, but we've had a lot of real life experience. It's important to put in that caveat that we're not trying to pass ourselves off as mental health professionals.
Nope. We're just two people who really know how to understand a story.
Yes. Yes. So as Shadow Weaver says this line to Adora, you've allowed Prime to take too much ground, blah, blah, blah. You must act now. She's talking to Adora and Catra's standing right behind her. And so Adora looks very shook.
Yeah.
And then Catra looks, very pissed off and hurt and just kind of resigned with this way that to me, I can almost hear her inner monologue. Like, what did I expect? I know how this is going to play out.
Exactly. I have my notes. I just summed it up as Catra is in the background, just reliving literally everything that has happened to her.
Yes, exactly.
Like Catra has started her journey and has immediately hit the she's like, okay, I'm starting my journey. I'm starting my healing. I'm starting to try to not, quote unquote, not be evil. Right. And then boom, here is my first major hurdle. And it's this person that has caused me so much pain and has pretty much been such a contributing factor into my trash mental health my whole life.
Right, right. And for Adora, she's not even able to allow herself to have any thoughts or feelings about her own well-being, mental health, her journey, because she is just back in that place of, I can't afford to think about myself or my well-being because I have to do what needs to be done or everybody's going to fucking die. So I don't have the luxury of having these thoughts about my own well-being.
Right. And so the two of them are just a fucking mess at this point.
They're just in it.
They are in it. It's true. They're not a mess yet. They're just in it. And I think the important thing to distinguish here is that they're back in it.
They're back in it. That's right. Because that's what complex PTSD is.
Yes, exactly.
Because every time you're going through a new thing, you're just back in you're re-experiencing, like you said, all the traumas you've already been through.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know what this is and I know what I have to do because like there's an inevitability about it.
Exactly. And it makes sense. Like, because you've lived in this sort of pattern, your brain is going to make that pattern in that narrative.
Right. It's this deeply worn groove in your brain.
And nothing is ever different and nothing ever changes.
Right, right.
That's kind of what we're seeing right now. And Shadow Weaver knows that.
And she's exploiting it.
And she's exploiting it.
Because that's what she does.
Because that's what she does. That's what she does.
And this is also the first moment that Shadow Weaver puts a hand on Adora's face.
Yes.
And she doesn't brush it away right away, but she does eventually. And she says, it's the only lead we have to try. And she just goes right into problem solving mode. She's, it'll have to be a stealth mission. And then she turns to Catra. She says, Catra, do you think you and Milog can ... But then she sees that Catra and Milog are gone.
Yeah, Catra nopes out of there.
Yeah.
Nopes out of there with her emotional support kitty. And of course, Shadow Weaver, instead of seeing that as like, yeah, maybe Catra needs to take some space because she's the fucking worst, says, oh, leave her to sulk. We can't let her slow us down.
Oh.
And it's just, once again, Shadow Weaver coming in, making the whole toxic triangle thing happen again, and coming and trying to just like put a wedge in between them because that's how she's able to control them.
Right. And just taking over the whole situation.
Taking over the whole situation because she needs them. And we don't know why Shadow Weaver needs Adora and needs them until much later in the episode. But this is her MO.
Yes. This is just standard behavior. But right now, Adora is maintaining a generally positive attitude. She tells everybody to get ready and then she'll go find Catra.
And then we have theme song and we have credits.
Mm-hmm. And we do have one tiny change.
We do. We have a very triumphant kiss between Spinny and Natasha.
And I don't know if this is something that you picked up on or if you think it's a stretch, but when I was looking at that kiss, it kind of reminds me of the iconic World War II VJ Day kiss in Times Square, that photo.
I was literally about to say that.
Awesome.
It is that. Though the story around that VJ kiss is really kind of crummy.
Yeah, it is kind of a crummy story because, like, for a long time it was totally anonymous and nobody knew who the people in the picture were. But then when they eventually found the dude, he's like, "Oh yeah, I was just kissing every woman I saw."
Yeah, and we're like, "Oh, cool. So you didn't even ask her. You just..."
Yeah, but consent wasn't really a thing in the 1940s.
That being said, it is an iconic picture and it has been used so many times over and recontextualized and taken back. And I feel like this is a really wonderful way to take it back. And
yes. So I thought I would drop a link in the show notes for that as well, for the Wikipedia article, so people can see that photo and just read the full context of it. It is an incredibly beautiful and triumphant image. And Spinny and Natasha certainly do it justice.
They absolutely do. We love our gay aunties.
We sure do.
We love our lesbian aunties.
They deserve their happy ending.
They deserve their happy ending, and so does everybody else here. And this is a hell of a question for you, Jenny.
Yes, Meph.
Are we going to win in the end?
Oh, well, Spinny and Natasha definitely are.
Well, that's good.
We'll stick with that for now.
That's good. Okay.
But you know what? Our friends are really coming together.
They are.
So if we can maintain our faith in each other, I think we have a good chance. If we let Shadow Weaver come between us, the odds are not good. If we can maintain our faith in each other and push out people who want to divide us with mind games, then we have a good chance of winning in the end.
Oh. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, me too.
And now let's get back into the heavily emotional episode that is the Failsafe.
Yes, let's go over to our little bunk area. Catra and Milog are curled up in a way that I wrote, "This is how we all curl up with our kitties when we're not okay," if you're a cat owner.
I also have this. Yes, this is the poor snuggly kitty. I need emotional support cat time.
Cats are the best.
Cats are the best. And Adora knows that because she wants her cat to come to Mysticor.
Yeah.
Catra's just... right, the first cut from Shadow Weaver. Why would I do that? Seems like you and Shadow Weaver have it handled.
Mm-hmm. And Adora doesn't just jump in arguing or trying to convince her. She just sits down on the floor next to her and holds space for her until she's ready to talk.
Yeah. And Catra says something that makes a lot of sense for Catra and for, I feel, us, the viewers. After everything she's done to us, you're really going to follow her.
Mm-hmm.
And Adora doesn't, lets Catra know she doesn't like it either, but it's the only plan we have.
Mm-hmm.
The failsafe could finally save Etheria.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, she's not wrong.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't suck.
That doesn't mean it doesn't completely suck. And it doesn't mean that Shadow Weaver is doing this and going about this in the right way
Right.
either.
Yeah. It's a shitty situation and there just isn't a better option.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why Catra doesn't really have a good answer because there just isn't a good answer. Catra just sort of sighs and rolls away from Adora so they're not looking at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And Adora says, Shadow Weaver hurt us. I haven't forgotten that. But Prime is hurting so many more people. I need to stop him, Catra. She doesn't say we need to stop him. She says, I need to stop him.
Yeah.
And, it's there are different ways that line can hit. Adora feels that burden of responsibility because she knows, because she's experienced her whole life with this sense of burden of responsibility because Shadow Weaver has always put that burden on her that it's well, you're the one who has to handle it. You're the responsible one.
Mm-hmm.
If other people fuck up, it's still your responsibility because you were supposed to be watching them. You were the leader.
Right.
And as She-Ra, she has maintain this sense of responsibility because she's the strong one. So I really feel that deeply where she's coming from feeling that she's the one who has to do it. But I also understand how that line could hit Catra where she feels like Adora is just going off on her own again and it has nothing to do with anyone else.
Right. And maybe she does end up doing that. We don't know.
We don't know right now, but I can feel how that line can hit differently for different people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that can be a triumphant hero line. I need to stop him. But Catra also knows Adora not as She-Ra, but as Adora, the not triumphant hero, the person that is always being put in charge by the manipulative narcissist.
Right, exactly.
And so this line, it hits Catra in the, oh, I know. Not you have to go save the world, but you have to go save the world.
Yes. And she puts her hand over her neck when she's saying that in the place where the chip used to be.
Uh-huh. And then my heart breaks.
Yeah, me too.
I was just oh, these two. And she is really trying to make Catra believe this, but she's also trying to believe this herself. Hey, she can't do anything to us anymore. Please come. And then pauses. I could really use your help.
Yeah.
And we really want to believe that.
And she puts her hand over Catra's on her shoulder when she says it.
It's so tender.
She's really trying to center Catra.
She is.
In that moment, as much as she knows how to.
I also read this moment as Adora convincing herself by convincing Catra that Shadow Weaver can't manipulate us anymore.
Right. And of course, that's a very naive thing for her to think at this juncture.
Mm-hmm.
But what else can she do?
This is really hard, too, because you can see Adora going into saving mode for Catra here.
Yes.
Right? It's she can't do anything to us anymore. I'm comforting you.
Right.
Obviously, I'm fine about this. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Right.
Adora, you're not fine.
Yeah.
We just saw how not fine you are. And we're going to continue to see this.
Yeah.
The way that she did reach out with that tenderness was something that Catra did need.
Yeah, and we can see Catra responding to it.
And the way that Catra responds here is so soft, and she really believes it. And that's the other thing, is that in this moment, she really does believe it. Because she believes Adora, and she believes in Adora, and she believes in them.
Yes.
And Catra agrees, fine, but I'm only doing this to make sure Shadow Weaver doesn't try anything, right? Goes back into her bluster.
But she has this cute little grumpy smile.
Yeah.
And she says, not because I like you.
It's not because I like you. And Milok just, rolls on Adora. And Jenny, I don't even think we have to say this here.
We don't, but we will.
But we will. Obviously, gayest moment. Not only listen. There are probably 4 moments gayer than this, and they come at the end of this episode, and then in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, the next 2 episodes are on a level of gay that defies ranking.
Right, exactly. It's like the next 2 episodes, it's just the entire episode is one sustained, long, screaming gayest moment.
But this is a cute little soft one.
This is a cute little soft one. And as you listeners know, we love a soft moment.
Especially if it involves an actual cat.
Especially if it involves an actual cat. An actual cat that is the actual emotions of you.
Yeah, and then Catra watches Adora and Milog cuddle, and she just smiles like one of the softest smiles we have ever seen.
It's a top-level soft moment, and that is also a gayest moment. The entire thing is a gayest moment. Adora is having a great time with Catra's emotional support cat.
Bonding with their new family pet.
Yeah, so we love this. We love it when kitties love our girlfriends.
We sure do. So we just see Bo walk past the medical tent, and Spinny and Natasa wave to him, and you can see like, okay, Spinny's fine, and Bo waves back. And it's just to show that Spinny's okay now. And as soon as he walks past, Entrapta like yoinks him because she has some important exposition to share.
There's a lot of exposition in this episode, folks. I mean, it is an episode that really has to line up the last 2 episodes pretty heavily.
Yeah, it's pretty important stuff.
But also, like, the exposition of this episode is pretty fun. Like, it's really well done.
It sure is, as always.
So Entrapta does her little tech exposition. She was able to remove Spinny's chip, but it was way more difficult than Catra's because it looks like it was really fusing to Spinny's nervous system.
Right, because it was in there so much longer.
Right, and we also saw that happening while they were fighting. We would see the like little neuron tendrils kind of sink in.
Yes, yes, yes.
And Entrapta is concerned. If we waited any longer, they wouldn't be able to get them off at all, and the chip would have been permanently fused in.
Right. So basically, we're learning that there's a ticking clock on how long we can wait to free everyone else.
Love a ticking clock. Fantastic little storytelling device. So we have a ticking clock, and Bo's like, oh, that's not good. And Entrapta's like, yes, it's not. But she has an idea.
Luckily, she has a great idea for a super smart way for how to scale this project up and, free everybody at once. So she shows him this network on her screen that connects all the chips to Prime's hive mind. And it's sort of like a 2D rendering of a 3D network. So it's kind of hard to describe what it looks like. But, it's a giant network of the hive mind.
Yeah.
And if she can just figure out how to hack the signal, she could disrupt it, which would sever his connection to the chips and take them all offline at once.
Which is incredible.
Which is freaking genius.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And Bo is as excited as he should be, tells her how awesome she is and that she should keep working on it, which of course she is more than happy to do. And I was thinking how nice it is to see Bo and Entrapta meeting as techie peers and appreciating each other.
Yes, I appreciate that as well. Because Entrapta is such a genius. We sometimes forget that Bo's pretty damn good with the making himself. I mean, he is a member of the Ethereum makers community.
He sure is.
But like Entrapta's like next level genius.
Yeah, she's top of the heap.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see her getting the recognition that she deserves from someone who can appreciate her in her world.
Absolutely.
So he tells her that they'll be back later tonight and she should keep working.
And so she plays on her little touchscreen, deep boot, deep boot.
While everybody else goes to Mysticor.
This is much less fun than the last time they went to Mysticor, Jenny. I just want to bring that up. I mean, to be fair, the last time they went to Mysticor, there was a whole bunch of trauma.
Yeah, the last time wasn't super fun either, but it was more fun than this.
Yeah, at least they got to go to hot springs last time.
Yeah. They got to soak in a hot tub and go on Cloud Beach.
Yeah.
So our team shimmers in invisibly thanks to their Milog as they sneak in sneakily.
They are sneaking in with much sneakalation. I love how they indicate that the heroes are invisible here when they're standing versus when they're moving. Because when they're moving, they're just like a shimmering cloud of magic dust. But when they're standing, it's this wonderful like negative space line drawing. And I think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I feel like they do that like when they first bloop in, they have to show you for a second, like, here they are. So that's when they do the outline thing. And then it's like, okay, you've seen them and now they're going to go. So like, they don't want to show you the outline the whole time.
Right.
But they just show you for a second when they're standing still that here they are. I think they manage to strike a really great balance on the whole, okay, they're invisible, but we have to show you something so you know that they're there, but we don't want to show you too much. They do a really great balance.
we need to see them as invisible when they are in moments of peril because we need to be able to see their reactions because it's visual storytelling.
Right. We need to see what's going on. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So, like, they're in a moment of peril. They're still invisible and hiding, but there is still a wizened old wizard walking around with a staff. And for all they know, like, these wizards can see through the magic and see through the invisibility.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
But they learn very quickly, thank goodness, that they don't. And they are safe. And they get into Mysticor. And as they enter Mysticor, we see at the end of a long and shadowed corridor, because who doesn't love a long and shadowed corridor?
So Shadow Weaver's in the lead, and then she throws her arm out dramatically to stop them because it's chipped Micah.
I love how they've introduced a lot of the chipped characters, like when they're in battle or, you know, like not battle, but like when they're in peril, when they're confronted, because so many of them, they're introduced in half shadow because they are half shadowed. They're still the people that they love. They're being controlled. So we have this another lovely half shadow pan up like we did with Scorpia, like we've done with Mermista when we've seen them as chipped, to emphasize they're still there, but they're not. And
yes,
we always learn that by their eyes, right?
Yes, yes.
And it's always a very dramatic eye reveal. Glowing, controlled eyes in half shadow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, he's terrifying.
Yes, he is. And this is Glimmer's first time seeing her dad.
Yeah.
Which is obviously super fucked up and upsetting.
Which is super fucked up and upsetting.
And she gives a little gasp. Like, Glimmer gives a quiet but audible gasp. And Micah, like, he either hears it or senses something. And he stops and looks around, but of course he doesn't see anything. But he lingers. They have like a long moment where he's like lingering and looking around. And they all have to stand there and be super quiet. And Glimmer is like visibly upset and struggling to keep it together. And, you know, Aunt Casta puts an arm around her shoulder and is like, you know, comforting her and giving her a little shoulder pat, showing her comfort and compassion, which of course helps her keep it together. And I think it's probably obvious that this little moment is meant to be a contrast to the next scene, the way that Shadow Weaver grabs Catra to show the difference between someone having a moment of vulnerability and being shown love and compassion by an adult versus someone having like a tiny moment of vulnerability and being preyed upon by an adult.
Absolutely. I didn't actually notice that, and I really like that.
Yeah, because Glimmer also makes a tiny noise here, and nobody freaks out about it.
We've always had contrast. We've always had both Glimmer and Catra as contrasting characters, like they're complementary characters.
That's right. That's right.
And we've been showing that, you know, since the beginning of last episode, that Casta and Shadow Weaver are also contrasting characters.
Yeah, like I've thought about that every time I've watched this episode, that, you know, Glimmer gets to have a supportive adult at her side in this moment when she's having a moment of weakness. And then 2 seconds later, Catra, it's not even really a moment of weakness for Catra. It's not like she's feeling vulnerable. It's like she looks in the room and doesn't see anyone, and she turns around and whispers, okay, we're good.
Yep.
And then someone pops out. And then Shadow Weaver grabs her really invasively and says, keep your voice down. And when Shadow Weaver whispers, keep your voice down, her voice isn't any quieter than Catra's.
No,
so it's like
not.
It's like you're not helping.
So this is actually one of the most important moments in the show for me. There have been a few moments in the show where we really see incredibly realistic depictions of trauma, of PTSD, CPTSD from Catra. One of them is when Catra dissociates, Once Upon a Time in the Waste. There are other moments, but this one I think is just as sharp and salient for me as that, where, as Jenny described, they're about to enter a room. Catra is doing something normal. They're sneaking around. Catra looks inside, says there are no sorcerers here, because Catra rightfully doesn't see any sorcerers and therefore does not feel like she has to whisper.
Well, she is whispering. She is whispering.
It's a normal whisper.
Yeah, it's a normal whisper. She's being normal in the situation.
Also, I would just like to point out Catra, who literally took over the entire world.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
She knows what she's doing, but Shadow Weaver will never see her as that. So Shadow Weaver chides her and grabs her and pulls her back.
She fully grabs her with both arms. She wraps one arm around her waist, wraps one arm around her head and over her mouth, and yanks her. And whispers at the same volume level that Catra was whispering, keep your voice down. Like, you're not any quieter. You're not helping.
In this moment, Catra, just like as we were talking about earlier in the episode, goes back to, quote unquote, that place. Goes back to the place that she knows. This is the dynamic she's always had. Her body reacts. She reacts. She turns, yells, don't touch me, and pushes herself away. And this is just such an incredible depiction of the physical reaction of CPTSD. I'm going to disclose this part. I think I feel safe enough doing that. I've been in a bunch of car accidents. It's not fun. When you've been in a bunch of car accidents, your body reacts in particular ways when you're in a car before your rational mind reacts. I've been in situations where like everything is fine on the highway, and then somebody would merge in front of us. It would be a little dicey the way they were merging, but not too bad. My entire body would freeze up. I would scream, "What the hell? Who is that?" Before even realizing that A, I'm safe, nothing was wrong, and it's okay. But that's not how trauma works. And that's not how trauma, especially trauma that you get from physical violence. So we've seen Shadow Weaver be physically violent with Catra. And so this sort of combination of the dynamic that they have, the way that Shadow Weaver is treating her, and the actual physical act that is very similar to the abuse that Catra has endured from her. Catra has no other way to react in this situation.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not.
Like, she does not have control over this, and we see that. We see how quickly her entire body goes up, how quickly she does the thing where she gets herself out of the situation fast as possible.
Yeah, like I have never been in a car accident, and, you know, I'm lucky that I've never, like my PTSD has never involved physical violence, but I have physical reactions for other things. Like, you know, when I had COVID and for the first year and a half afterwards, you know, I had a productive cough that was so bad that my diaphragm basically gave up, and I would aspirate my own spit sometimes and start to choke. And so even now, like I occasionally aspirate a tiny bit and I still get this violent full body terror and adrenaline shock. And like, you know, I start shaking and like, I think I'm going to die. Like, and like tears, and I'm not crying, but like tears start pouring out of my eyes because it's this violent physical reaction that I can't stop. Like anytime I like aspirate my spit a tiny bit or water goes down the wrong pipe, like it happens occasionally. And my whole body is like, we're dying right now.
Yes, exactly.
And like, you can't help it when you have those kinds of physical trauma reactions. It's not something you can logic yourself out of.
No. And in this particular moment, Catra, who is incredibly good at stealth missions, as we've seen before, when she's literally made fun of people for being like, you know, you're not stealthy, you suck at this.
Like, this is an area of expertise for her. If people would just leave her be, and if Shadow Weaver wasn't fucking breathing down her neck.
Yeah, literally at this point.
Literally. And then it's going to throw her off her game for the rest of this mission. Like as soon as like she pulls away, and then Milog also is thrown off because he's emotionally connected to her and he loses his concentration. And so they all go visible. And so the look on Catra's face in the next second is like, oh, fuck, I fucked it all up.
I fucked it all up and it's all my fault again.
Right? Because I had one tiny moment of vulnerability and that's all it takes for everything to come crumbling down.
Sweet baby Catra, I get it.
Oh, sweet baby Catra.
And it is what happens, you know? Shadow Weaver triggers this like mini meltdown, which causes them to be seen and heard. And it says here a sorcerer appears and casts a spell on the group.
So now it's time for some fighty fight.
It's time for some fighty fights. And so, you know, when fighty fight time happens, of course, Adora turns into She-Ra, and she can't.
Right. Adora rushes in and tries to honor the Gray Skull, but it glitches and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And she rushes to hide behind a crystal with Catra and Milog just in time.
Yeah, so, okay, this is just kind of like a little bit of a wonky thing. So they can just, like, run away from magics. Like, they're just, like, getting magic shot at them. It's like, oh, no, I'm running away from a shape. Like,
I mean, the way that they portray it, it's like a directed blast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways you could portray magic. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but it kind of goes back to the whole conservation of ninjutsu thing. If one blast of magic would knock out everything in the room, then that would be the end of it. The whole show would be over.
Right, exactly. But I do really love that it's like, oh no, evil shapes.
Yes.
We've all talked about sigils here. We know about sigil magic, but running from evil triangles in circles is pretty funny to me.
Yes. I have a question for you, Meth, and I don't have an answer.
Okay.
So when eventually, Adora and Shadow Weaver are going to have this conversation in the hallway, it's like, why can't you transform? She's like, oh, it's been happening ever since the fright zone. And Shadow Weaver chooses to blame it on Catra and Adora's emotions. But we know that's not true.
Right.
But so why do you think it is that Adora has been struggling to transform?
All right, let's work this one out together. We know that the She-Ra comes to Adora through love of her friends.
Right.
And it comes from the importance of protecting her friends.
And just, centering love. It doesn't just have to be love of her friends, love of the world.
And centering honor, right? Like she's literally, for the honor of Grayskull, she was honoring the love of her friends. She's honoring the love of the world. Okay, so love is the actual magic of the universe.
Yes.
I think that she's having problems accessing the love of the universe because of fear.
Yeah, I mean, fear does block love.
Yeah, and I think it's fear, and I think it's self-doubt. And I think that's what it is. When this happened in Fright Zone, it came from a place of fear and self-doubt. Fear of hurting people that she loved, just as Perfuma had, and self-doubt in that, am I going to be able to save my friends?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because the level of which this is all notched up is just like higher than it's ever been.
Right. And because she always has the pressure to save everybody on her, right? Like that's a core thing of Adora. If she has any doubts, she does not have power.
Right. And she doesn't feel comfortable sharing her doubts with anyone.
And she doesn't have the vulnerability needed to overcome her fear and tap into her love.
That's right. Because, and as we're going to see in the next episode, when she talks to Mara, finally, she feels like if she can't be perfect and save everyone, then she's, a useless fuck.
Right. Death is not her gift.
No.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I saw it. And this makes perfect sense with Shadow Weaver coming, and Shadow Weaver has always been the one filling her head with doubts. In the converse way, right? Like Shadow Weaver blows her up, but putting her on that pedestal makes Adora full of doubt. Like she has to be good enough for Shadow Weaver.
Yeah.
Even when she doesn't have the same kind of dynamic that she did when she was growing up in the Fright Zone, she still has that, right? Like as we'd mentioned.
Yeah, no. And that's what I super identify with, is when you have a parent who puts you on a pedestal, it's so much to live up to.
Right.
And that's something I'm going to get into probably more in the next episode. But, when I was growing up, I had a bipolar mom and, a clinically depressive dad. And, my mom tried her best to make me feel like I was great, which, I knew came from a good place, where she's like, you're the best kid in the world. Thank God you're so strong. Thank God you're always going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I knew that she loved me, and that her love was unconditional, but it was also so much pressure. So I always felt like I had to be okay, and that her being okay depended on me being okay.
Right.
So when I did feel overwhelmed and like I wasn't okay, I felt like that wasn't an option. I had to always be okay, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because if I fell apart, then everything would fall apart, and that was just not an option.
Right. We joke about the, I'm fine. Everything's fine here a lot. We joke about it because it's real.
Yeah. So I identify with that aspect of Adora so deeply.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like it's like, oh, you're just being stubborn. Why can't you just admit that you're human like everybody else? And it's like, well, when you grow up with this sense of everyone else is allowed to have vulnerabilities and weaknesses, but if I have those things, then the world will literally fall apart.
Right. And because Adora is like, a hero character, she's a hero archetype, having the actually things will literally fall apart because you are the savior of the universe.
Right.
The strength in that about this show, something that has drawn, I think it's pretty fair to fair to say you and me to this show, is that they recognize the hero archetype here. Okay, she does have to save the world, and then goes deeper into the character behind the archetype.
Exactly.
What does having to save the world mean to a person, to a
Right.
young woman who has had this pressure put on her whole life?
Right. What does that feel like?
What does that feel like? What does that mean? And that is the core strength of storytelling in this show.
Exactly.
So we have Adora sputtering out. Nothing is happening.
Yep. And luckily, Auntie Casta saves the day with some sigil magic.
Thank you for throwing triangles, Auntie Casta.
Yes. And it was just that one sorcerer for now.
It was just one for now.
But this now has, again, put a clock on this mission. So urgency has been cranked up.
Love that. Love a clock. As we mentioned earlier, Meph loves a clock.
All right. Shall we mosey back to Rebel Camp?
So we're back at Rebel Camp right now, and we have Swifty just hanging out.
Maybe he's enjoying a little grass snack.
Just getting a little grass snack, getting a little fresh air, just, just sniffing the world. He's a horse.
Being a horse.
He's a horse. He needs to be outside.
Yeah.
So he's outside just being a horse, and Entrapta just straight up walks out with her tracker pad. Do. And Swifty's like, where are you going? And Entrapta, we get a little bit more of Entrapta exposition. She's so close to cracking Prime's signal.
Yeah, she's doing what she and Bo agreed upon.
Right. But the chip isn't enough. So she needs to find a place with a high concentration of clones so she can analyze their connection to the hive mind, which not exactly the safest thing, but she has to do it.
She has to do it if they're going to win in the end.
She has to do it if they're going to win in the end. And also, like, Entrapta's thing is she knows she has to do it. Like, it's not like...
She doesn't think much about bodily safety for herself ever.
She doesn't, but also, like, she's like, this is how I can contribute, and so therefore I am contributing.
Yeah. Like, she has her eyes on the prize, and she's not worried about herself.
Yeah. She has more agency in the I have to do this than Adora does.
Yeah. Also, I think she's not really afraid of the clones because they're all her boyfriends.
I was gonna say, yeah. Also, it's just like, oh, boyfriend clones. Okay. So she walks out. And Swifty's like, whoa. You're just going to walk into that place that's crawling with clones. Of course. Yeah. Yep. And Swifty's like, okay, so there's no way that I can stop you from doing this, right? And Entrapta's like,
nope. She's super cheerful.
Cheerful.
Swifty is very nervous, but he also knows that this has to happen and he's not going to try to stop her.
Swifty understands the Tao and understands that sometimes you just need to move where the universe is moving you. And therefore, though this may be a horrible idea, Swifty is going to do it. Hop on, I'll get you there faster and I'll get you out if there's trouble.
Yeah, he definitely knows that her plan is dramatically more likely to succeed if she has a flying escort.
Right, a bird horse.
Yes, and he has definitely asked her before not to call him that and tried to explain that he is not a bird horse, but he kind of has given up on that at this point and accepted that it's going to stick and it's not the end of the world to be called bird horse.
It's a nice boiled down way to describe him.
Yeah, it's kind of a cute nickname.
Yeah, he has bird wings and is a horse.
It kind of sounds, honestly, I kind of think it sounds better than Pegacorn. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it better than Pegacorn or Alicorn? Was that the?
Yeah, that was one of the options.
Yeah, I like bird horse.
Yeah, I think it cutes. He accepts it.
Yep.
Off they go.
Off they go to have their own B-story adventure.
Yes, it's a good one. I can't wait till they get there.
So now we're back in the halls of trauma.
Yes. Oh my God, the halls of trauma.
It is. The last time we were in the halls of Mysticor, it was the halls of trauma too. This is just a traumatizing fucking place.
Yeah. Mysticor has not been a fun place for our pals.
For all the hyping up of like, oh, it's so great. We can go there, go to a spa and relax and, drink mimosas by the pool. It's not. It's like the halls of trauma.
Yeah.
So anyway, back at the halls of trauma in Mysticor.
They walk past Shadow Weaver's old statue, the old the blasted statue of Lightspinner that they couldn't get rid of. And I did notice Shadow Weaver clocking it, and she doesn't say anything, but she's like, oh yeah, there's my statue. They couldn't get rid of it.
I didn't notice the clocking of the statue.
Yeah, she just kind of glances at it. Because it's right at the end of the row.
This is kind of a homecoming for Shadow Weaver too. Like, as much as we hate Shadow Weaver, and boy howdy, do we hate Shadow Weaver here. Like, she is still a very well fleshed out character, and she definitely, like, has her feels here too.
Yeah, she's a very well developed villain. You know, it's like she's not just, you know, like it's unsatisfying when you have a villain that doesn't have good motivations. Like, that's one of the reasons that I severely dislike the final season of Buffy, because the first is just a shitty villain. It's like, oh boy, I'm evil. I'm the evilest evil that ever eviled. I sure love being evil. It's like, that's not satisfying. But so it's like, it's so much more satisfying when you have a villain who's really well developed, and, you know, you love to hate them because it's like they're emotionally complex. There's someone that you believe is a real person.
Yes, I agree. And I think that they do that well in this show, is that you do believe that Shadow Weaver is a real person, and they don't go so far into the Shadow Weaver is a real person that we forget that Shadow Weaver is also a villain.
Right. It's the perfect balance.
Yeah, and like, they're not, Shadow Weaver is an antagonist, but she's also a villain. And there are major differences between those two, like, understandings.
Absolutely.
Shadow Weaver is not a great person, and Shadow Weaver hurts a lot of people.
Yes.
So anyway, and she's just rude. Like, Shadow Weaver's like, okay, we're here, follow my lead. And Casta's just like, would a please kill you?
Yeah, Casta's a little bit petty sometimes too, in the same way that like Shadow Weaver expects people to thank her in the heat of battle. It's like, Casta's being a little petty here. It's like, all right, we're kind of in the heat of things. Do you really need to be asked nicely to go down the corridor to the secret place that we're all rushing to get away from the bad guys? Like, just come on, Casta. Yeah, I mean, like, they're always going to be shady to each other, and we enjoy watching it, but it's like, all right, come on. Just keep up with the group.
So then they get to this, like,
secret tunnel.
Yeah, so they get to this design. It's like this, like, mural, and there's a perfect place there for a sigil or crystal of some kind that has First One's writing on it, which we don't see anything else like that in the, you know, the Hall of Trauma there. And it's just like, oh, I guess this is where the key goes in.
I just kind of figured that, like, that was the end of the row of statues, and, like, as they continue to have more of their, like, Jedi Masters or whatever, they'll continue to put more statues. But this is just all of the statues they have right now.
There is this, like, place where it's like, oh, okay, this is definitely not a secret door that doesn't have a secret key.
I actually didn't notice that.
Oh, yeah, and it has some First One's writing on it, and we're like...
But no one except Adora can read the First One's writing.
Right, but our listeners probably can. Listeners, if you know what this says, please let us know. There's a whole bunch of First One's writing here, and as we go in through the secret tunnel, there's a bunch of stuff. I didn't take the time to read it through the translator, but you know what? I know that we have listeners out there that have done that, and I want to know what the secret writing is.
It would be great to know.
If you know, please email us at heyadorcast@gmail.com.
That would be cool.
Shadow Weaver and Casta cast a particular diamond-shaped spell at one of the sorcerers, and lo and behold, we have...
secret tunnel!
There's a secret tunnel!
Into the First One's citadel.
Into a citadel. So they're in a dark hallway, and the walls are covered in symbols and paintings.
And Glimmer does her fairy lights so they can see.
I call this the Indiana Jones ass hallway, and I have a very minor little smart brain moment on petroglyphs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So as we have Glimmer doing her big ball of energy, we see this wonderful mural that, and I'm going to describe the mural here. We have a mural here that resembles petroglyphs and petrographs. Going to explain the difference in a moment. We have a circle in the center enclosed in kind of like a semicircle, like a hemicircle. We have two 4-pointed designs in the center of that kind of circle. There are lines radiating out of these, like these center crosses. We have like 2 overlapping crosses that are radiating out to the crust. On the sides of the big semicircle, we have some animal pals. We have like a stag. There's like a dinosaur. There's a bird. There's maybe a whale. I don't know. There's celestial bodies, there's suns, there's moons, there's spirals, there's crystals. And at the very top of it, there are 2 sorcerers standing on the top, facing each other with a waxing crescent moon between them. And outside of the circle, outside of that, in like a greater hemicircle, is first one's writing. Tons of first one's writing. In the very center of that is a heart shape.
Nice. I really didn't pay close attention to any of the stuff on the walls.
So cool. As we walk through, we're going to see when they're telling the story here. We're doing a little bit of exposition. Castig does a little bit of exposition. We'll get to that. But we see that the walls are telling a story and there are different paintings. As we go through, we see more things like hands reaching down. These reminded me of petroglyphs. What are petroglyphs? So really quick, a petroglyph is an image created by removing part of a rock surface as a form of rock art. So it usually refers to rock engravings of ancient origins, often associated with prehistoric people. A petrograph is a cave painting.
So a cave painting is properly called a petrograph?
It's called a petrograph or a pictograph, yes. But not a petroglyph because it's not carved in.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. They are found all over the world, like all over the world. Every single place that has ever had humans, there have been these sorts of drawings, and they're everything from like, here's where you find the buffalo, to here's how God started. Like, they tell stories. All of them tell stories. Do we all know what stories they tell? Not really. Archaeologists and anthropologists from all over the world have been studying them for gobs of time. In the United States, there are some really fantastic ones in the American Southwest.
Yeah, I've seen petroglyphs in New Mexico. Such amazing history. So ancient.
Thousands of fucking years. And I think that's the thing that I love about them is that, like, and one of the things I love about ancient history, at the end of the day, we've been people the entire time. We've been people.
Yeah. We are a fundamentally storytelling species.
Just as we learn stories from ancient people from this, so are Glimmer and our pals learning about the stories from these paintings. They look like paintings. I don't think they're carved in.
No. I mean, this is a wall. It's not rock.
Yeah, it's more like a mural. If you want to type in petroglyphs in the old Google. There's some really wonderful ones that were found in caves in Iraq. Like you were called back to your Citadel days.
Aren't there also some really ancient ones that were discovered in France?
Yep, France, everywhere. France, Iraq, China, Australia, Sub-Saharan Africa, southwest of the United States, everywhere.
Rock on.
And we learn our story from these petroglyphs.
Yeah.
But before we get there, we have to have feelings.
Oh, we sure do.
So Glimmer is having feelings of awe, which, yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah, of course.
But, then we kind of go to Catra and Adora, and they're walking together, and Catra's not doing great.
Yeah, Adora notices that Catra is looking very unsettled and asks her if she's okay. Catra has her arms wrapped around herself. She has her ears down. But Adora doesn't even get the full question out because as soon as she touches Catra's shoulder, she's like, hey, are you? She touches her shoulder and Catra jumps and she gets like this full body shiver. She says, I'm fine. And so my only note there is all caps, hypervigilance.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, she's definitely like still in it. She's still in the space.
Yeah, because of course she hasn't had a chance to recover from what just happened in the other room.
No, she hasn't. And Catra is not okay. Obviously, she's not fine. And Adora tries to comfort her and says, Catra, it will be okay. Trust me. Then we see Catra looking at Adora, and we see this look from Adora of pure just love.
Yeah, she gives her a really good smile.
And she looks so tired, too. She's just like, please trust me. I love you. And there's also like a part of like, and I can fix this in that, right?
I don't know if there's, it's obviously open to interpretation. But yeah, the smile isn't like, I can fix this. There's like a sense of serenity. But she does say it will be okay.
It will be okay. Yeah, not in the smile. But she really, it's such a pure smile of like, hey, I love you. It'll be okay.
Yeah. But Catra doesn't really look very reassured at all.
No, and to be fair, like, she doesn't really have space to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is totally fair. Like, you can't force someone to, like, get out of their hypervigilance in 2 seconds just because you say, hey, it'll be okay.
Yeah, hey, I love you. Like, yeah, and you can get, like, a small smile out of that, but, like,
Yeah, like, it's still good to, like, say, hey, I'm here, I'm with you, I love you. Like, it's good that she said that, but it doesn't necessarily change anything.
Right. And of course, Shadow Weaver notices that they're being good to each other.
Right. Can't have that.
And not paying attention. She can't have that because it has nothing to do with Shadow Weaver. So then she just digs in on both of them again.
Yeah.
Essentially seeing this is a waste of time for her. Shadow Weaver says there's no time to waste. News of our presence will have reached the others by now after that disturbance. And I'm like, fuck you, man.
And she like leans right down in Catra's face when she says that. It's like, do you really think that this is helping anything?
Right. Like, once again, that dynamic of like, I will divide them. I will control them both. And this is how I control them both, by making sure that they cannot connect with each other.
Right. And again, like, I don't love how Adora responds to this, but I understand that it's like, this is not the moment to like fully get into it. Like, Catra scowls at Shadow Weaver and Adora just says, come on, we have to keep moving, and walks past both of them.
Yeah.
And I really want Adora to tell Shadow Weaver to back off. But I understand, at the same time that like, she's probably afraid, like she feels caught in the middle, and she's afraid that if she's more aggressive, that it's going to become a whole thing. We don't have time to get into a whole thing right now.
Right. Also, like, this is the dynamic. We see this in one episode of like, this is actually what their dynamic looked like for years and years and years.
And that's why it was naive of Adora to say Shadow Weaver can't do anything to us anymore. It's like, oh, you really think that?
Right, exactly. That's just, that's like the Chekhov's emotional wreck. Like,
yes.
Shadow Weaver can't do anything to us. Yeah, girl, she can, and she does. And she's doing all of it because she knows how to push your buttons. Because it's not like y'all have spent the entire time in the therapy for
Right,
years.
exactly.
Adora is doing the thing that Shadow Weaver knows how to get her to do, which is to put her head down, to sacrifice herself and her feelings, and to keep moving.
Yeah. And also, something that Catra has asked Adora repeatedly over the course of the whole show is like, I didn't ask you to protect me. I can take care of myself. So like, if Adora did jump in and tell her to back off and like leave Catra alone, that could be, taking away Catra's agency. So I don't know if that would be better. Like, it's hard. No matter how you slice it, there's no easy answers.
Right. Because they're messy. And once again, the show is so well written that like, we get that it's messy. Right. So,
Yep. So all they can really do right now is continue on this mission and deal with the feelings later and pack it all away. So actually, this is the part of the wall mural that I did pay attention to, because it looks like the spell of obtainment that Shadow Weaver did with Micah when she was Light Spinner.
Ooh, see, I didn't catch that.
And Bo touches it and asks what it is. And Casta is the one that answers. And she answers in this tone like she's telling a ghost story because she loves to create a vibe. And she's super into it. And she says, oh, we're on the right path. The Crystal of Arxia was rumored to be the key to reaching the deep magic within Etheria. Many have tried and failed to find it, but those who hungered for more power have long sought other ways to obtain the deep magic with disastrous results. And she pointedly looks at Shadow Weaver.
Right.
And Shadow Weaver says, the spell of obtainment was a mistake, one for which I've paid the price. I don't see why you keep bringing it up. Obviously, she's not sorry. But so now we're getting some world building backstory here that the spell of obtainment was tapping into the heart of Etheria, that was what that was. Because here's this picture of a spell that looks exactly like the spell of attainment. And this is the first one, Citadel. So I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Shadow Weaver gives a very unsatisfying answer to Casta's dig. Casta's not satisfied with that. She says, you roped my brother into your twisted dark magic. When he was only a child, you could have killed him.
Right.
Shadow Weaver remains totally unrepentant. She says it would have worked had he not broken the connection, and that Micah was an exceptional sorcerer even then. It's a shame it didn't run in the family.
This line by Shadow Weaver is so telling because she hasn't paid the price.
No.
What Shadow Weaver said, the spell of attainment was a mistake for which I've paid the price. She's like, it would have worked. It's like you paid the price, but you don't understand why it was bad.
Right.
Like you don't understand that you hurt anybody.
Yeah, it's clear that she feels unjustly punished.
Right. She has no remorse for this.
No remorse at all. She's incapable of remorse.
The only remorse she has is that it, would have worked if he didn't wasn't almost completely consumed by magic and, almost destroyed as a child.
Yeah, her only remorse is that she wasn't allowed to complete the spell.
Yeah. So fuck her. But also this is funny when she was like shady about like, it's a shame it didn't run in the family.
Yeah. And, she's happy to be able to get a rise off of somebody because Glimmer and Casta both look pissed.
Yeah, but also like Casta's like a pretty solid like magic user here.
Yeah. But,
Like, no one's Micah, but...
No. But, it's like Shadow Weaver just wants to make sure that Casta knows that she's not as good as her brother.
Well, because Shadow Weaver has to surround herself with the best, or who she thinks is the best. Because if she thinks they're the best, then they are the best, because she is the best.
Right. And she's the only arbiter.
And she's the only arbiter of who is the best.
Yes.
Because she's a narcissist.
That's how that goes.
That's how that goes.
You know who's not judgmental like Shadow Weaver? Kitties. Also Swiftwind. Let's check in with Bird Horse.
So, meanwhile, back in the bee story,
yes.
Swifty is with Entrapta peering through the bushes once again. These people do not know how to be stealthy.
They're doing their best.
They do their best, but they do blah. They're much better at just blah running in there, but that's fine.
But, he's poking his head out of the trees to check that the coast is clear.
Mm-hmm.
And Meth, there's this big horde space crystal structure that I was struggling to describe. And so I decided that since it's something I had to look up, that I would do another mini deep dive on what is this thing.
Ooh, yay.
I feel like it's sort of like a sci-fi space horde version of a radio telescope. That's the closest analogy I could come to.
Oh,
because their version, clearly this is communications equipment. And in real life, we don't have space equipment that is communications equipment because we don't have anyone to communicate with in deep space.
Not yet. If Carl Sagan had his druthers.
If we did, we might use a radio telescope for that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be crystals. Everything on Etheria is crystals. But we could use a radio telescope for such things. So what is a radio telescope?
What is a radio telescope?
So obviously I'm not an expert in astronomy, but I do love outer space and astronomy. So a radio telescope, it's like, there are different kinds, but the main kind, it's like a giant disc. So just like optical telescopes, you think about like looking at space. Optical telescopes collect visible light, bring it to focus, amplify it, and make it available for analysis. Radio telescopes collect weak radio light waves, bring it to a focus, amplify it, and make it available for analysis. We use radio telescopes to study naturally occurring radio light waves from stars, galaxies, black holes, etc., other astronomical objects. We can also use them to transmit and reflect radio light off of planetary bodies in our solar system. These specially designed telescopes observe the longest wavelengths of light, ranging from 1 millimeter to over 10 meters long. For comparison, visible light waves are only a few hundred nanometers long. And a nanometer is only 1/10,000th the thickness of a piece of paper. In fact, we don't usually refer to radio light by its wavelength, but by its frequency, which is a word people do know, usually in conjunction with radio waves.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally occurring radio waves are extremely weak by the time they reach us from space. For example, a cell phone signal is a billion times more powerful than cosmic radio waves that our telescopes detect. So here's a little fun fact about the history of radio telescopes. Radio waves from space were first detected by engineer Carl Guth, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Guthe, Carl Guth Jansky in 1932 at Bell Telephone Labs in Holmdel, New Jersey. So that was by accident, using an antenna built to study a radio receiver noise. The range of frequencies in the electromagnetic spectrum that makes up the radio spectrum is very large. So as a consequence, the types of antennas that are used as radio telescopes do vary widely in design, size, and configuration. So it is possible that a giant crystal could make a good radio telescope, and we just haven't gotten around to that yet.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, some that we have look like TV antennas, like the one Entrapta is carrying.
Mm-hmm.
But most are very large and dish-shaped. The world's largest filled aperture, i.e. dish telescope, is the 500-meter aperture spherical telescope, which is the acronym is FAST, completed in 2016 by China. The 500-meter diameter, that's 1,600 feet, dish, with an area as large as 30 football fields, is built into a natural depression in the landscape in Guizhou province, and it cannot move. The feed antenna is in a cabin suspended above the dish on cables.
Huh.
So they can change the shape of the dish by moving the feed cabin on its cables, and the telescope can be steered to point in any direction in the sky up to 40 degrees from the zenith.
Cool.
So that's fucking huge.
Dude, that's fucking huge.
Yeah. And then up until a few years ago, the second largest filled aperture telescope was the Arecibo radio telescope in Arecibo, Puerto Rico, which I was familiar with, although it suffered a catastrophic collapse on December 1st, 2020, which I didn't know. It's kind of a bummer.
Whoa.
But that was one of the world's few radio telescopes that was also capable of active, i.e. transmitting, radar imaging of near-Earth objects. And most telescopes only employ passive detection, i.e. receiving only. So that kind of makes it sound like we can also send signal to space, like we're going to talk to people, but that's not really what it means. It just means that we bounce signals off of stuff so that we can study how it bounces back.
Okay, because I was thinking we were sending fart noises to aliens.
That would be cool.
But that's not what it is.
So yeah, active transmission through radio telescope is called radar astronomy. And that's the closest we can get to what these clones are probably doing. Radar astronomy is a technique of observing nearby astronomical objects by reflecting radio waves or microwaves off of those target objects and then analyzing their reflections. But if we had people in space to talk to, this is what we would be doing.
God willing, one day. And I hope they're cool.
I hope they're not a bunch of evil clones.
Jenny, thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. I was really desperate to inject some levity into this episode somehow.
No, I appreciate you dropping some science and then gently picking it up and placing it in a crevice in the earth.
Yeah, no problem. So our clone buddies don't need a giant crevice because they are not using a dish telescope. They are using a crystal-based technology as they are wont to do.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say that's a gayest moment because using crystals to talk to the universe is gay as fuck.
It deeply is.
It's like really fucking gay.
It deeply is. Crystals, and more crystals.
Crystals are gay as fuck, as we all know, because we all know that bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Who's just like, let me consult my crystals.
So Swifty and Entrapta see the giant crystal telescope that is communicating with Horde's mothership and fleet up in space. She says she needs to get closer.
She moves in, does a little bit of exposition. This is incredibly complex. She needs to pick up more connections in order to kind of understand what the different patterns are, right? Which makes sense. There's so much happening.
Yeah, I mean, she has to get this data in order to save the day. But Swifty is really nervous. He's not on board.
And is very much as like, no tech is worth you getting captured by Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, this isn't about tech. It's about our friends. Like, she's like, this is my spoke in the wheel. This is how I can contribute.
Yeah, and she's able to express herself and communicate this point like 1,000 bajillion times better than in launch when our friends were trying and failing to communicate with each other.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe it's just easier to communicate with an animal, you know?
Or maybe she has just like learned from that experience and leveled up. Or maybe it's both. Maybe Swifty is easier to talk to and she's remembering back to that like, oh, those guys really didn't get what I was trying to communicate. And I have now adjusted how I'm going to say it to try to help them understand better.
Right. Totally.
And she literally says, if I can get this to work, I can save them.
Yes. And she's like, okay, this is how I'm going to do that. And Swifty's like, you know what? Be quick. I got your back.
Yeah, and Swifty does get it. Like, he doesn't like it, but he gets it. He's like, oh, okay, I don't like it, but
Okay. He's like, well, at least I can fly.
Yes, so off they go into Clone Town.
So they go into Clone Town, and Entrapta, holy crap, she gets the signal that she needs.
And she also shows a lot more self-preservation and situational awareness than she has in the past, because she stays hidden behind a big pile of rocks while she's doing her sciencey science.
Absolutely.
But
But
she does get the signal, but then what happens?
But then she runs into somebody, a clone.
She gets the signal, hooray, but then here's a big ugly clone. Oh no.
Whatever the opposite of a meet cute is, that's what's happening here.
It's like bum bum bum, danger.
Dun dun dun. B story over, or is it? And then we go back to our A story.
Thanks for listening, and we'll return with Failsafe Part 2 soon.